All right, guys, good morning. Today is Mindset Monday. It is September 15th, 2025. And today we're going to go over money mindset. All right. So there's a couple of, this is just one portion of money, but I want you to understand the difference of how let's use the word low income closers think, mediocre income closers think, and world class closers think. So we're going to go over this. So this first thing here we're going to go over is let's see if we can hit play on this next slide here. All right, hopefully this will work. Here we go. All right. So the first thing you need to understand is what is at stake. What is at stake? So, it's not letting me do this. Stand by real quick. All right. So first things first, you have to ask yourself relatively, where are you at right now compared to your past? Maybe you think, maybe you came to Leaf Filter or you came into in-home sales and you were making 50 to 60 grand before, and now you're making 100, 120 grand now. And you think that's pretty good, right? Because you doubled your income. I remember, I was there. I remember the first time I ever made six figures, and one of the things that one of my mentors, Jeremy Miner, says is that low six-figure sales reps have the biggest egos. And I think it's because of this reason, because they're comparing themselves to when they were, broke before. So what's your financial history? So then you have to ask, what is it now? Are you making more than you used to make, or are you making less than you used to make? If you're making more, so think of this as like the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. What could your income be? So let's say you're making to 100, 120 grand a year now, but there's other guys in your office that are making 200, 300, 400 grand a year. That's what it could be. You're in the same office. You could get the same leads and earn the same kind of money, right? So the reason why you don't think about this is because your ego, but if you just think about what is at stake here, you're going to learn there's levels to this game. Level one, let's see here if we can go to the next slide here. Okay, sorry. Technical difficulties here. All right, so what is at stake? You're a level one closer possibly. Maybe when you got on the call with me, you were a level one closer. What does a level one closer look like? Good Lord, I'm having this technical difficulties here. 5 to 7K a month. 5 to 7K a month, you're making 60, 70, 80. Maybe you're just sniffing and knocking at the door of 100 grand a year. Okay? You're if there's 10 reps in your office, you're number 7, 8, 9, or 10. Maybe 8, 9, or 10. The bottom third. The ones that are barely getting any leads at all. Okay? And if you get leads, they're usually not the greatest one. When you close a deal, you don't necessarily know what you did that closed the deal. You just threw a bunch of shit up against the wall hoping something to stick, and sure enough it did. And when you didn't lose a sale, this is what the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People calls unconscious incompetence. You're not competent, clearly, if you look at your income, but you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you need to change. You don't know why you lost the sale. You might think you know, but you might not realize that it's a whole nother level. You might think, hey, I got this objection, I didn't know how to overcome it. But you don't know what you did that caused that objection to happen. So what's your destiny? You're either going to get fired or you're going to quit. Because there's a saying in this industry, you feed your wolves, you ride your horses, and you kick your dogs. Eventually, the dog's going to get tired of getting kicked, so it's going to leave the house or it's going to bite back at the owner. and then it's going to get fired. So you think, oh, you blame outside circumstances. You think, oh, this manager doesn't like me. I'm not getting leads. These leads suck, blah, blah, blah. You're blaming everybody but yourself. So the chances are that if you leave this career, you're going to go somewhere else, take the same shitty attitude, and you're going to end up being mediocre at another job as well. Does this make sense? Let's see if I can hit next here. Oh, really would like to see if I could figure out how to, let's see if we can figure next. Next slide, skip slide. We'll just do it. Oh, didn't want to do that. Here, let's do this. All right. We're going to delete that slide. Technical difficulties, not the most technical. All right, here we go. So now you know what a level 1 closer is, correct? Level 2 closer looks like this. They're making 8, 10, 12 grand a month. They're a low 6-figure earner. These are the guys that have the biggest egos. You might think it's the guy that's making 300-400 grand a year, but it's like they think they've figured it all out and they know everything. But their numbers are inconsistent. They're somewhere between 8 to 12 grand a month. They might have 12 to 15 grand one month, but then they might do 6 to 8 the next. This is kind of their average, but they're like a roller coaster ride. One good month, one bad month, good seasons, bad seasons, slow times, busy times. Their income isn't based on their skill level, it's based on their activity level. I'm going to let that sink in. Their income is not based on their skill level, it's based on their activity level. They just can't figure out how to break the barrier. These are the guys that are like in the middle of the pack of the office. Number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. Okay? They're kind of in that middle of the pack, that 4, 5, 6 range. They think that's pretty good because they're relatively good compared to the lower guys. But they can't figure out what's taking them to the top, what takes other guys to the top. So what they do is they have a process and then they stop doing the basic things. And when they have a slump, they go back to doing the basics and then they get back to where they were. But they've never, here's the thing. If you're following the system, if everybody follows the system, what are you going to get? Everybody's going to get the same results. So what do the top 2 to 3 reps in the office do differently that the bottom and the mediocre or average reps don't do? They don't treat this job as if it's their profession. The low tier guys are like, it's better than working at a gas station or firewall, whatever your job was before. Now you're like, oh yeah, this is a pretty good part-time job, This is, I make 100, 120 grand a year. I don't work a whole lot. I'm not working 40 hours a week. There's some days where I'm busier than others, but it's a good little job. They're not treating it like it's their profession. You might not get fired, but not really much changes in your life because let's face it, if you're only making 8 to 12 grand a month, after taxes, you're really only making like 6 to 10 grand a month. And at 6 to 10 grand a month, if your monthly expenses are like 5 to 8, and like, can you retire your wife on this kind of income and live an above average lifestyle? Or would you have to still kind of live in poverty? Would you still have to look at the price tag? Would you still have to ask, can we afford this? These are the guys, the level 1 and level 2 closers are the ones that get on the sales call with me and all they can think about is how much was this going to cost? Same house, same cars, same vacations. And the question is, are you willing to settle for that? If you are, you're not going to be, you're going to get eaten alive in the mastermind. If this is you where you're like, yeah, that's pretty good, I'm okay with that. If I can make this much money, you're going to get eaten alive in here. Because here's the thing. Tony Robbins says you get out of life what you are willing to tolerate. First in yourself, then in others. So if you're willing to tolerate this in your own life, our guys in our group aren't willing to tolerate this. They're not going to settle for it. So if you're that type of person, this is probably not a fit for you. All right? So keep that in mind. Are you willing to be one bad month away from, not having, if you get injured on the job and you can't work, are you willing to be settle for being 1 month away from being broke? Do you have a year's worth of money saved in your bank account for life purposes, life situations? If you had a family member that was had cancer and they needed $100,000 chemo treatment, could you pay for that? Are you willing? If 1 out of 3 people in the world have cancer, if you've got a wife and a kid, the odds are 1 of the 3 people in your household is going to get cancer. And if they needed $100,000 life-saving cancer treatment and you can't afford to be able to treat them and save their life, are you willing to settle for that average, mediocre life? We're not. All right, so then you got level 3. If you're not willing to settle for that any longer, you're not willing to settle for not having your finances in order, you're not willing to settle for having to have a boss and all that stuff, then you're stepping up into the level 3 closer mindset. This is somebody that's probably making somewhere around 15, I really want to say 20 to 30K a month. All right. The previous one probably needs to be somewhere around 10 to 12K a month. But we'll just say 15 to 25K a month. If you're making 20, 25K a month, you could probably afford to buy what you want to buy, lifestyle-wise. You're in the upper echelon of your team. You're in the top 3 out of 10. They know why certain appointments closed. They know where it turned for them. They're consciously competent and also consciously incompetent. And the cool thing is the mindset that they have to go to level 3 from level 2, this will bleed over into other areas of their life. They've got a decent income. They've got a growth mindset. They know that investing in themselves will mean that they will be able to reach this, from level 2 to level 3. They'll be able to go to level 4 and beyond. They treat this job as it's their profession. Think about a professional athlete. How do they study game film? Right? Their games are filmed, and they go on Monday or Tuesday, and they go to the film room and they watch their plays. Well, are you watching your plays? Level 3 closers record their appointments, and then they go back and listen to their appointments. In fact, they'll transcribe their appointments and they'll think, how could I have asked that better? They go back and they're always working on their craft. They're treating this like a profession. All right? They have more confidence. They have better communication skills. Their health and fitness is better. Their relationships are better. Family and friends are better. Level 2 closers, you think they're going to stay married and happily married for the rest of their lives? You think their hot wife is going to want to stay with them for the rest of their life, settling for 8 to 12 grand a month? Right? Do they even have a hot wife? Because frankly, you can kind of tell how good of a closer is by how hot their wife is. This guy, you think he's going to be able to attract a hotter wife than this guy or this guy? What do you think? By the way, if this offends you, good. This taking offense to this stuff actually will make you realize that I'm not willing to tolerate certain things in my life, and there's something that is triggering me in this, and it's not just me saying it to you. There's something inside of you that's being triggered. And when you can look at yourself and do what's called self-actualization and figure out what it is about that triggered you and be able to work on that, that's when you'll just show up naturally and be able to sell better. So what's level 4 look like? This is like 30 to 50K a month minimum. but probably 50 to 100K plus. And there's levels to this. Like level 4 is here. You might be, there's level 5 where it's like they're making 100 to 250K a month, not necessarily at Leaf Filter, but these numbers are possible at Leaf Filter. Joseph Ryan Miller does it. I've had multiple 40, 50K months, multiple 30K months. So 30 to 50K is on the low end, 50 to 100K is on the higher end. How long would it take for you to have time, location, and financial freedom if you were making this kind of money? Joseph Ryan Miller's mission is to make this kind of money, buy as many houses as humanly possible so that he can go ahead and be able to have passive income coming in from those rentals, where when Leaf Filter decides to let him go or change the comp plan or whatever, he's got enough money that he doesn't need Leaf Filter. How long do you plan on staying here at Leaf Filter? How long do you plan on staying at your job? How much longer do you want to have a boss telling you what time you can wake up, what time you can go to bed, what time you can eat, what time you can go to the bathroom? And here's the thing. The skills that are required, it's not just income. It's not just activity. It's the skills that are required to get to this level. The skills and talents can be transferred to all other areas of your life, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And the skills that you'll learn to take this area, you can apply this to fitness, relationships, and all that. Become obsessed about it. What does your life look like 5 or 10 years from now? Are you still at Leaf Filter? Do you own your own business? Are you a CEO of a company? When you're able to apply these things to your life, your whole life changes. So, what does it take to get to the next level? Are you a level 1 guy trying to get to level 2? Level 2 to level 3? Level 3 to level 4? Again, going back to this first point, what's at stake? The level 1 closer is making 5 to 7 grand a month. From him, what's at stake is being able to make 8 to 10 grand, 8 to 12 grand a month. We'll say 8 to 15K a month. Right? I guess I can't change it. Right? So if we're talking double the amount of income, well, $60,000 to $75,000 a year. Would you invest $5,000 to $6,000 to learn how to make $50,000 or $60,000 a year more? That's what's at stake. There's $50,000 to $60,000 on the line for this level 1 closer. That's what's at stake. A level 2 closer going from 8 to 10, 8 to 12 grand a month to doubling their income. That's what's at stake. That's $100,000, $120,000 on the line by staying at level 2 and settling for level 2 and not going for level 3. That's what's at stake. Would you pay 5, 10 grand to learn how to go from making 100 grand to 200, 250 grand? Most people would say yes. Level 3 to level 4, making 30 to 50, that's an extra 20 grand a month. That's 250 grand a year. Well, this is what's at stake. If you're a level 3 guy and you think your life is pretty good, well, do you think you're going to be able to retire in 5 years at this kind of income? Probably not. So what's at stake? Your livelihood, your life, your family, your ability to be able to go to your kids' soccer games and see them growing up because you're too busy? What's at stake? You have to ask yourself. So what does it take to get to the next level? You have to understand, first of all, what's at stake. Number 2, you have to raise your standards. If you're a level 2 guy, you cannot be willing to settle for this level 2 lifestyle. You have to say, enough is enough. I've had it. I'm sick of this shit. I'm ready to go to level 3. I am no longer willing to tolerate making 8 to 10 grand a month. I want to make 15 to 20 grand a month. You have to raise your standards. So that's your goals. How you master anything in life is this 3 pillars format that I teach people. This is the 3 pillars of mastery. Number 1, hire a mentor. You're not going to do this on your own. You might be able to do it on your own, actually, but it's going to take you years. This can shorten your learning curve by hiring a mentor, because it's like if you're going to hike to the top of Mount Everest, could you figure it out on your own? or possibly die trying? Or would you have more success if you hired a Sherpa who's been there before? Hire the Sherpa. Number 2, massive action and total immersion. So if you want to master any skill, number 1 is you want to find somebody who had outstanding results and model what they did. Number 2 is you want to totally immerse yourself and just go ham on it. All right? That stands for hard as a motherfucker. That's a massive action thing. Okay? Take massive action and you give it enough time and repetition over time, and success is inevitable. This is the formula for success. Get clear on what it is that you want. Take massive action. Have sensory acuity to know if you're getting closer to or further away from your goals, and adjust the activity that you need to take. And then the 5th step of the ultimate success formula is to model, which is this. And then you take massive action, and you just have to give yourself time and grace and repetition. This is how you get to the next level. So if you're in the mastermind already, you already know what it took. You had to step up. If you're watching this as a YouTube video, you have to ask yourself, you have to take this time to ask yourself, what is at stake? If you go to a Tony Robbins event called Unleash the Power Within, he does this exercise called the Dickens process, where he has you basically ask yourself, what pain are you avoiding by not taking action? And what pleasure are you getting by not taking action? That's the reason why you are where you are and why your history is your history. But your past does not equal your future. Your decisions lead to your destiny. So you can change your destiny of your life by changing your decisions. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, if I keep doing the same actions, I'm going to keep getting the same results. So if I'm no longer willing to tolerate settling for the same results, then I'm going to have to make different decisions to take different actions. So then you have to ask yourself, what pain am I receiving by not taking action? And what pleasure am I not getting by not taking action? And then you have to amplify this over, over the next 5 years. What happens if you don't take action over the next 5 years? What happens if you don't take action over the next 10 years? What happens if you don't take action over 20 years? Who are you hurting? Is it just yourself? Or are you hurting your children? Are you hurting your family? He gets you all in this riled up state. And then he says, are you willing to settle for this? And it gets you to this point where the exercise does not feel good, but this is part of self-actualized selling, is you have to be able to go through this process with yourself. So once you get to that point, then you have to ask yourself, am I willing to settle for this? No, right? And get fired up and get emotional leverage. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what pain will I be avoiding if I take action? And what pleasure will I be getting if I take action? And then amplify that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And say, am I willing to settle for what it is? So you have to go over you have to figure out what is actually at stake for you and what your life could be like if you were to change your standards, change your lifestyle, improve your skills. All right? Take care.